McLaren have only gone and done it again. It's only been a little over a year since they controversially swapped their drivers around in Hungary last year, but this time they have gone too far and they've made a mockery of Formula One racing. On a day where it was blown away by Max Verstappen, McLaren's biggest embarrassment wasn't so much the gap that they trailed to Verstappen by the end of the race, but the call to order Oscar Piastri to move aside for his teammate and championship rival Lando Norris just because of a slow pit stop. Some think that it was the right call for the sake of fairness, while others think it was a complete nonsense and wasn't necessary for McLaren to get involved. So did McLaren do the right thing or cause a needless situation that they didn't need to make any interference in? Well, up until now, McLaren has, it's fair to say, dominated the 2025 season. It's won 12 of the 16 races and is on course to comfortably win both championships, which they haven't done since 1998. And given that their drivers are realistically the only ones who can win the championship this season, in fairness to McLaren, they have let them race for the majority of the season and haven't needed to get involved and order them not to race one another. They're very happy for them to have this mantra of we let them race as long as they keep it clean and don't run into each other. They definitely seem to have got their message across, and what's impressive is they have instilled this kind of trust between both the senior management and the drivers that they will race cleanly and will not battle each other too hard, but it costs the team points. Since they adopted the papaya racing rules in the middle of last season, it's only really Canada this season where things have gone wrong. That was where Piastri and Norris were battling over fourth position and when they ended up colliding, but the outcome really was as good as they could have hoped for because all the blame clearly lied in Norris's corner and the team didn't really lose too many points on that day. It has also ensured that both of his drivers are given equal opportunities and they're not seen to be favouring one over the other. They want to give each of them a fair crack at it because they are realistically fighting only each other for this championship. It's been quite common in the past when teammates have fought each other for a world title that it has got quite intense and often caused a bit of a riff inside the team. But that hasn't been the case with Piastri and Norris. This is probably the hardest fought but fairest title fight between teammates since Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve at Williams in 1996. And for that reason, you absolutely have to give McLaren credit for how they have managed to keep both of their drivers' relationships civil in the heat of a championship battle that could easily go all the way down to the wire in Abu Dhabi. But on the flip side, this attempt to give each of their drivers the fairest possible chance to win this season's championship has now gone completely over the top, and it's gone too far in my opinion after what happened at Monza. So let's look at the context as to how McLaren managed to get themselves in this pickle. Well, first of all, they were clearly second best on the day to Verstappen. He had pulled out quite a significant gap during the opening phase of the race, and that's when McLaren began to assess his options as to how it may be able to put him under pressure by the end of the Grand Prix. They decided, together with both of their drivers over team radio, to try a different strategy and go from the medium tyre onto the soft tyre at the end of the race. Now, crucially, Lando had managed to qualify ahead of Oscar and ran ahead of him for all of the Grand Prix. So that's when, on lap 46, when McLaren decided to pull the plug and pit for the last 7-lap charge. But this is where the situation began to unravel, and it was really bizarre, to me anyway, that Lando was quite happy for McLaren to pit Piastri before him. He actually gave them that option, saying, if you want to pit Piastri before me, go ahead. Which I don't understand, because why would you risk being undercut by not only your teammate but your championship rival, and you're happy for them to service him before you? Lando had already come into the Monza weekend having lost a handful of points because of his DNF at Zandvoort through an engine failure, so the last thing he needed was to drop even more points to Piastri. So surely you've got to be thinking of your championship hopes. You've got a chance to gain 3 points, which could end up being crucial by the end of the season. So Oscar came in first. His pit stop was absolutely seamless. It was a 1.9 second stop. He rejoined comfortably back out in third place. And then Lando came in the following lap, and his pit stop was a disaster, where they were slow to put on the left front tyre. It wasn't attached properly. They had to go back in with the wheel gun. And having had a 5.9 second stop, he came out behind Piastri, which wasn't the plan. It did not take long for McLaren to get on the blower to Oscar and tell him to slow down and let Norris back through, citing team reasons for why they pitted them in that order. And at first, and I didn't blame him, Piastri was clearly a bit miffed and frustrated as to why this had happened, because it wasn't in his control as to what had happened to Lando. McLaren had fluffed up the pit stops themselves. He had benefited and gained a position quite fairly. I think he was absolutely right to challenge and question their call, but in the end he did obey and let Norris back through without any hesitation. That's how they would end up finishing. Norris came across the line in P2 with Piastri following home in P3. So that meant that Lando gained 3 crucial points in the championship, so the gap is now down to 31 points going in to the final 8 races. But let's be clear here, this did not need to happen. McLaren did not need to get on the radio and tell Piastri to let Norris back through. He was absolutely in his rights to not hand that position back if he had chosen to do so. In the end, in respect of the team, he decided to cooperate. But the fact that McLaren felt that this was the fair thing to do because of Lando's slow stop is a bit of a joke, to be honest. All drivers have luck, bad luck, no luck, all kinds of luck. Lando had bad luck with having a slow pit stop, which cost him a position, and that's the way they should have finished. At the end of the day, that's racing, that's how it goes. Drivers do not always finish in the positions that they deserve to. You could cite hundreds and hundreds of examples of this, but I'm just going to name the one, which was Charles Leclerc, Bahrain 2019. He was well on course for his first ever win. Then he had a mechanical problem that slowed him down and allowed Lewis Hamilton through, and he only finished in 3rd place. That day, he absolutely deserved the win. He did everything right. It's just that he had a bit of bad luck with a mechanical failure. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I guess the reason why Oscar was kind of happy to sort of brush this aside and was smiling in interviews after the race was because he probably thought, well, I've only lost 3 points. It's not the end of the world. It could have been a lot worse. I'm still leading the championship by more than a race victory. But even Verstappen was laughing about this situation when the team told him over radio about what had happened. And that brings me on to my next point, that a driver such as Verstappen, who's got a ruthless edge, would never have moved aside. They would have said, tough luck, I'm keeping my position and gaining 3 points over them. You could never have imagined this happening during one of the other more intense title fights between teammates, such as Alonso and Hamilton in 2007, Rosberg and Hamilton in 2016, Prost and Senna in 88 or 89. In a way, this kind of reminded me of Hungary 2014 when Mercedes ordered Hamilton to let Rosberg pass because he was on a different strategy, despite the fact that Hamilton had started from the pit lane, was running ahead of Rosberg at this point, and so was fighting for position, and he wasn't holding him up, so he was absolutely in his right to try and fight for the position. And that's when Lewis said, I'm not moving over. If he wants to overtake me, then he's got to overtake me by fighting for it. This naturally has drawn comparisons to Hungary last year, but I think this is a completely different situation based on the fact that Piastri and Norris are fighting for a title this time round, whereas last year it was only Norris that realistically had a chance to fight for the title. But I was critical of McLaren last year for how they handled that situation. They put themselves in a position that they never needed to in the first place. And I feel the same way about the Monza incident. They should have just let this one go. Based on how McLaren responded to the criticism after the race, Andrea Stella said that the reason that they did this was a matter of consistency with their principles. Clearly being fair to their drivers is an important part of their culture, and that's something that they don't want to change, which is fair enough, but one or both of them are going to have bad luck at some point during the final 8 races. They can't keep trying to balance the books when one of them has bad luck, because at the end of the day, that's not what Formula 1 is about. And for me, it does more harm than good. It sets a dangerous precedent for the rest of the season, because now that you've done this and taken control of the situation, what happens if this comes up again by the final race in Abu Dhabi? You know, where do you draw the line? For now, McLaren's mantra of being fair to both of their drivers is working, but how could it fare down the line if they get themselves into a sticky situation? They've got to be prepared for how they're going to handle that kind of situation, because it could spell curtains to the relationship between one of their drivers. But perhaps because they've got a chance of wrapping up the Constructors' Championship at the next race in Baku, maybe they'll let their guard down after that and just let them race without interfering, because it obviously won't affect their position. We've been blessed with a great championship between 2 fantastic drivers who both absolutely deserve to win this title. But let's just hope for the rest of the season that bad luck doesn't come into it, because we do not want another situation like Monza. Well, there you go, guys. What did you make of McLaren swapping their drivers? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, if you are new around here, don't forget to like the video and please do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.